Hello everybody and welcome to the first bullet journaling video of my 2020 journal. I'm so excited to share this new setup with you, so let's just get started right away. I really loved my previous Archer and Olive journal, so I decided to spend another half a year using their notebook. I like to change my notebook and setup every 6 months, so I don't have to worry about running out of pages. And this time I chose this color notebook called Deep Green. I'll do a deeper review of these notebooks in the following months, but now let's get into the setup itself. So I wanted to start this new journal by simply setting the mood for this year. I'll actually face some pretty huge life changes in the following months that I'll share more with you in a little bit, so I thought it would be only fitting to address that somehow in the beginning here. However, on this first page, I just wanted to write 2020 on this big font to kind of get myself into the mood. The first thing I want to point out for all of you new bullet journalers out there is that I still use pencil to sketch everything beforehand, even after using this system for almost 2 years. So that's definitely okay, and you don't have to feel bad about doing that. Drawing big numbers or letters like these is much easier if you create these boxes for them, so you can measure the curves and sizes much better. I honestly don't know how some people are able to draw directly on their notebook. I feel anxious enough even after preparing everything with a pencil. Also, these numbers turned out kind of crooked at first because it was the first page and I was just too nervous to mess it all up. But I was able to fix the small mistakes a little bit, and in the end it doesn't look too bad. I usually keep the overall setup in the beginning of my notebook pretty simple and neutral because I want it to be functional in the first place. That being said, this time I did decorate it a little bit more than I usually do, and I had so much inspiration from different graphic designers and minimal, simple styles like that. One of the biggest inspiration for me lately has been Leela Journals on Instagram. She has a gorgeous minimal style journal that I'm dying over, so definitely check her out if that's your style. So I decided to play around with this grayish blush color paper that I used to cut out different shapes throughout this theme. This is not necessary at all. You can also use a light color brush pen to create similar designs, or any color craft paper or washi tape you happen to have at home. Anyway, I created this super simple and a minimal style decoration in the corner here. Drawing these small leaf things is so easy and fast, and I think they give this pretty sophisticated look to the pages without much effort at all. On the next page, I was going back and forward between a quote or some resolution for this year, and I ended up writing down one of my favorite small poems by Atticus that just hit me so hard and perfectly described how I feel about this upcoming year. So using the same paper, I kind of created this frame for this small poem, and I used my white sticker paper where I actually wrote it down. So the poem itself says, "A storm was coming, but that's not what she felt. It was the adventure on the wind, and it shivered down her spine." There's something so powerful and meaningful about this quote for me, so I thought it was the perfect message in the beginning of this journal. Now, everyone's plans and situations are different, but I really encourage you to try to find some kind of message that resonates with you on a personal level, and maybe write it down as a reminder for this new year. After finishing this page with another leaf doodle, our first page is done, and now let's turn our way to the next one. So now I'm gonna set up a year at a glance page, which is basically just the dates of the whole year on this one page. This is a great place to quickly find a certain date or to be used later when you're setting up your monthly layouts. But to be honest, my biggest motivation to set up this page is because I think it looks so cool and pretty. This is super tedious to set up though, not to mention that my pen decided to just break in the middle of this page. You can see me struggling here with a few of those lines, so I actually had to change a pen and the end result suffered from that a little bit. It wasn't too bad though, and I probably won't notice it after a while. Then after this is done, I'm going to create a future log next to it. So future log is a place where you can track any longer term plans or dates you need to remember. So for example, if you know you have something on May, but you still didn't set up your May layout, you can temporarily write that down here, so then you can later move those things to your May monthly calendar. Now in my last setup video, I actually mentioned that it would be smarter to immediately start from February instead of January, because you're probably gonna set up your January layout pretty soon and don't need this space here. Then you could also set your future log 1 month further, but because I'm an idiot and I didn't check my old journal, I totally forgot that fancy system and realized it when it was too late. Anyway, I'll try to remember that next time. I also made this future log much smaller than I've done in the past because I realized I don't use this that much. So only being able to write down few things per month works well for me. I feel like this spread always ends up pretty because of all these small calendars, but now let's move on to set up the goals page for this year, which is one of my personal favorites. So I first wrote down goals in this cursive font, and I created this very light fake calligraphy style to it, where I barely made the downstrokes of the letters thicker by going over them again with my pen. If you're struggling with your letters, my best advice would be to look for different pretty fonts on the internet and then try to replicate or mix them together. After that, it's just practice. I still have days when my titles are all over the place, but I've noticed that just by practicing these on my bullet journal every month does help a lot. So I wanted to start my yearly goals page by giving myself room to write down my long-term vision. I think it's easier to start working backwards from your longer term goal and then take some smaller pieces you could start building in this 1 year. I know many people think that New Year's are overhyped and you can make a change in your life whenever you want, but I do think there's something in the air during the new year that's full of potential and chances for new beginnings. So in my opinion, trying to take advantage of that mind space is definitely worth a try, and if it doesn't work, then you can always try again later on a better time. So however, next I wanted to list 3 of my main focus areas for this year that I'm gonna break down even further in the next page. On the bottom part of this page, I drew this small box where I have 2 lines every month to write down some notes or thoughts on how I could contribute to my yearly goals that month. On the next page, I'm gonna set up 3 action step boxes for those focus areas I just listed. So I'm gonna draw this bar here, which will be a visual meter of my progress. And then I'll have 10 places to write down some steps or different tasks I wanna get done. I know this might seem pretty intense, but I did something similar on my last half-year setup, and I ended up liking the straightforwardness of this system a lot. I think this also forces you to consider very realistic and measurable goals that you can easily check out from the list. So that's how I'm planning to tackle my goals this year. I really hope you could get some ideas out of it. But now let's move on, and the next page will finally explain some of my plans for this year. So on March, I'm actually moving to Japan. I know, probably not what you were expecting. I currently live in Finland, so it will be a pretty intense project, which is why I want to set up some kind of master to-do list for myself, only focusing around this. If you didn't know, I have a Japanese boyfriend and I've actually lived there for 1 year in the past. And now, after almost 3 years of long distance relationship, I'm finally going back. And this time I don't have a return date. I can't even describe how beyond excited I am about this, but just to let you know, I'll try my very best to not let this affect my videos in any way. I'll try to prepare enough beforehand. I probably have to take a small break from my Etsy shop during the move, but otherwise I'm gonna continue everything I'm doing now and hopefully starting to make even more videos when I have more time when I'm in Japan. I would love to know if some of you are going through something similar or if you have big changes coming this year. Do you usually plan those things in your bullet journal in any special way? I know this page is not very helpful for anyone, but maybe if you have a bigger project, you could use this idea of a big master to-do list. But I guess that's about that, so now let's move on. The next page is actually one of my favorites as well, and this will be the money tracking spread. The money tracker is something I set up every time and I've gotten so much use out of it. So I actually did it vertically this time. This is probably the first vertical spread in my journal ever, but this just gave me a little bit more space. And I also wanted to use this opportunity for this more interesting title option here. So anyway, after setting up and writing this craft paper title, I made this table for different things I like to track when it comes to money stuff. I know these things are kind of different for everyone, but I personally check how much money I have on my bank account 15th of every month, and then I write that amount down here. I think this is a really good and kind of simple way to keep an eye of your spending and how much money you have. Then I usually list how much money I make, so I have a section for my YouTube and Etsy shop, and then other stuff like my work salary. Then I have a savings account that I usually like to check every month. And then finally, I like to divide my savings into something I call the active savings and passive savings. So the active saving for me is when I actually put money aside, and passive saving is how much more or less money I have on my account compared to the previous month. Anyway, so these are just things that have worked for me, but remember that you can always alter everything according to your own life and your needs. On the next page, I'm gonna set up this simple bill tracker list that has also proven to be very helpful for me. I usually forget if I've paid my bills or not, so having a list like this where I can cross off my monthly bills right after paying them is super helpful. For now, I just wrote down my rent and phone bill here, so you can kind of get the idea. Then since there is still room on this page, I reserved it for my wish list, which is simply just a list of things I want to buy. I usually separate the more expensive items on this different column and then usually save the more basic stuff like clothing items or whatever to the other side. This whole spread ended up being one of my favorites from this whole setup. I think the craft paper made it look more interesting. But anyway, we only have few pages to go, so let's move on. So next I'll set up my bookshelf. This is also one that I always like to have on my setup. And this time I wanted to keep this page super simple and leave a lot of space for different books. Last time I totally ran out of space and I don't want that to happen again. I kind of have this bad habit of buying and gathering up books, but then I don't necessarily finish or start all of them. But I still like to keep them on this list so I won't forget them. I added this small leaf decoration to the top corner of this page, but otherwise kept the page super minimal. Then on this table, the book sign will indicate if I've started to read the book, and then I'll give a simple 1 to 10 rating for the book when I finish it. In 2019, I fell into the world of self-improvement books, and I have quite a few that are still waiting to be read. Big portion of these are audiobooks, so I guess that explains why I've started more than one at the same time. I personally listen to my audiobooks from Audible, and I do have an affiliate link for them. So if you've been interested in their service, you can get 30-day free trial and one free audiobook if you sign up through my link in the description. They didn't sponsor this video or anything, I just genuinely recommend their service. I'll leave the next page empty for now in case I'll gather up more books. And then we can flip our way to the last spread of my 2020 setup. So now I set up a monthly stats page that will basically be a monthly overview of my daily habit tracking. I tried this out in my last setup and found it super interesting, so I decided to do it again and track even more habits this time. So the idea of this page is to list the times I did a certain habit in a month into this table, and then I can compare different months together and see how the amounts changed. I also added my move minute counter to this that I track from my phone, and you could easily add your monthly steps or sleeping hours or whatever you would like to track. I think it's super interesting to see these long-term results and see the differences between each month. And also one thing is that I found myself to have way more motivation towards my habit tracking when I had this table to fill out in the end of each month. Again, I kept this page pretty simple, but I decided to add this small border around the page that framed it nicely, and then I finished it off with this small leaf in the bottom. Then we are on the very last page, which will be all served for inspiration. So whenever I find a video, read a book, find an artist, maybe listen to a song that for some reason really resonates with me and gets me thinking, I want to be able to have a place to write that down so I'll remember it and can find it later. I really like the idea of having a list of super inspiring things that I can look at when I'm feeling down or uninspired. So yeah, I highly recommend a list like this to everyone, especially if you need creative inspiration. And this could also work as a happiness or gratitude list. Maybe you could list some encouraging words or quotes or something positive like that to look at whenever you're feeling down. But yeah, I guess that's finally it. This is hands down my favorite setup I've created, and I'm really excited to start to use it. I know this might be quite a lot for many people and it might feel intimidating if you're now just starting your bullet journaling journey. So just take everything at your own pace, and remember that if you have any further questions, please just ask me in the comments below and I'll be happy to help. I really hope you're as excited of the new year as I am and try to take advantage of this new beginning that it offers. Also, my January plan with me video will be up very soon, and I promise it will have more decorations and drawings finally. So if you're new here and want to stay tuned for that, please consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope all of you are having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and see you in my next one. Bye bye.